I'm Heidi Alexander. I'm a law practice advisor at Massachusetts Law Office Management Assistance Program. And today, Ida and I will be talking about her recent book, Sponsoring Women, What Men Need to Know, which was published by Attorney at Work. And we'll be discussing how both men and women can help women advance their careers. Now, Ida brings extensive experience to the industry as a practicing attorney for a number of years before becoming a consultant in the legal field, helping to develop, manage, and retain legal talent. So first off, I'd like to have Ida tell us a little bit about her background and what she does now.
Well, thank you, Heidi. I was, as you said, I was a lawyer, practiced law. I was a litigator, spent most of my career at Heller Urban, and practiced for 20 years. So I have an extensive background. I was both in a very small firm of 6 lawyers and then went to Heller and spent about 15 years there. And then left there in almost 20 years ago. So I've been consulting to the legal profession since then. My general field is lawyers' professional development, and my concentration is in mentoring and in helping women advance in the profession.
Excellent. So let's get right down to it. Let's talk about the book. So first off, why this book? Why now?
Well, I've written other books and about women in leadership. I've written about mentoring for lawyers and other things. But a few years ago, 2 things happened. One was that there was some research published that showed that women don't have trouble finding mentors anymore. In the past, they did. And now, both because women are a little more educated about the importance of mentors, and there are programs and formal avenues for women to find mentors if they want them and can't find them informally. So women can find them. But there are different functions that mentors play in a lawyer's career. Some of them have to do with giving information and advice, some guidance perhaps, but the others have to do with actually moving ahead in your career, moving toward the kind of career that you want. And the benefits that women were getting from mentors was not the same as what they found that men were getting. So in shorthand, they found that women were getting advice, but men were getting promotions. And the reason was that in order to be a sponsor, and they started talking about this more proactive or advocacy kind of mentorship. People started talking about that as sponsorship. Some people think of sponsorship as something unique. I see it as sort of the ultimate kind of mentoring. It's what we all wanted when we first heard the term mentor, at least a long time ago, as somebody who really took you under their wing, took an active interest in helping you move ahead, introduced you to the right people, got you the right opportunities, things like that. So in order to do that, you have to have some power or some influence. And most of the people in organizations with any power are men, just because of the numbers, remain so dominantly male, which meant also that just because of how people work, men tended to sponsor other men instead of women. So basically, we finally had a new approach for this in terms of sponsorship. And then I'd always worked in this area without giving it a name. I used to call it champions, women need champions. But in some of the work I was doing with law firms, I discovered that this was a way, first of all, to get men into the room. Because these are conversations about gender bias, about what holds women back. Women talk to other women about this all the time, but men are never in the conversation. And sponsorship was an easy way to get men in because it deals with power. It deals with issues that are much more pertinent from a business standpoint because it's about advancement. And so I started doing some workshops with some of my clients and seminars. And what I discovered was that most of the interesting discussions happened afterward when men would call me or come in to see me separately because they did not feel comfortable asking certain questions in a room where there were women or men. I mean, these are questions like, my wife gets jealous when I spend a lot of time with my women associates and, or even my women partners, and I have a long trial coming up out of town, and I know my wife's going to give me a really hard time because my second chair is a woman. How do I deal with it? Or they would say, I work with this woman who's fantastic, but I can't give her feedback about the way she looks, which is horrible because I'm a guy. I can't say that to her, but I can't bring her to clients, or I can't, kind of put her out there if she doesn't change the way she looks and dresses. And so I realized that while women talk about this, men don't have a place to talk about it because they don't want to be seen as wimps or henpecked, or in some way unable to handle these things. Men don't want to appear as sexist, as dumb, as unable to deal with these things, and so they have nobody to talk to. And frankly, I don't think they talk to other men about it most of the time because, why would it come up to them?
Right.
So unless it's within the context of women proposing something, and then the men will support it most of the time. They have, what I found was that men want to help, but because they're not invited in, they either feel that women don't want them to help, it would be inappropriate for them to help, that the women are taking care of this by themselves, so I don't have to help. There are a whole host of reasons that have kept men and women apart in an area that is really for the benefit of the entire organization and really of the profession and of the greater society to be working together.
Yeah,
so absolutely. That's the long way of saying I wanted this book to welcome men, give them some very straightforward information and steps, concrete steps they can take to let them know we want their help. We want them as allies and partners in this effort.
Okay.
So
that makes sense, and that actually answers a few of my questions. So thank you. Check.
Some others.
I do have some others
to talk about.
I do have others. So when I read this book, it seemed to me the primary audience was men. But clearly it's a very important read also for women. And something you just mentioned was that sponsorship you talk about this in the book, sponsorship can be initiated in a number of different ways. And so I'm thinking about, what sort of advice do you have for women to effectively seek out sponsors and build and cultivate that relationship and really make it work?
Okay. There are a number of things. And as you point out, I wrote the book for men because there wasn't anything for men.
It's true.
There are loads of books.
Right.
And if anybody wants to contact me or on my website, I have loads of advice for women. I have for years, and many of us have. So it's easy to find that.
Yeah.
In this regard, I think there are a few things that are really important to keep in mind. One is the more strategic you can be about your career and what you want out of your career and what you want your practice to look like. And the earlier you can get focused on that, the easier it then becomes to look around and say, what do I need? Who's in a position to help me? And then how can I get to know that person and have that person see my motivation, my drive, my interest, my ability? But if it isn't coming to you, you need to kind of put yourself in the position. And you can't do that when you're clueless, when you have no idea what you want. One of the main distinctions between mentoring and sponsorship is that anybody can have a mentor and anybody can be a mentor. I just need a little more knowledge or experience than you, and I can help you in some way. And it doesn't matter if you've never practiced law before, if you're thinking about going to law school, I can be of help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to be your sponsor, you have to have proven to me that you're worth my investment.
Mm-hmm.
I have to believe you want it,
Okay.
you're good enough to get it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're somebody that's worth my time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
Because not everybody is going to find a sponsor,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and not everybody's going to get somebody, to look and say, boy, there's someone who's terrific. That's somebody who I really think could be fantastic, and I want to make sure that happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you really have to be a top performer, and you have to really want whatever it is you want. It's got to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the hard things also that I talk about in the book is that women aren't as out there. They're not as open and vocal about their ambitions, even when they have them. And so, nobody, man or woman, is going to take the time to guess what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they may love you. They may think you're wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But you may be wonderful, and the guy or the woman sitting next to you may be wonderful. And that person says, I want to be your first chair. Mm-hmm. And you're sitting there and you've had a lot of depositions, but you've never voiced an interest in anything else. Mm-hmm. So even though they may think of you for a minute, here's somebody coming in and saying, this is what I want. Mm-hmm. I'm going to, if they're just as capable, I'll give it to them. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a reason that somebody sees something in you, worth going for. Mm-hmm. And I think there could be a lot more of that. If women, were more strategic and were more directed and targeted in what going after what they want and then seeking the help to get there.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And so I want to just switch gears just a bit because as we discussed before our conversation, our clientele at Mass LoMap is primarily solo and small firm practitioners. And so I personally can see how a lot of what you've written about can apply to women who are solo practitioners and work in small firms. But I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you would analogize your discussion in the book to solo and small firms and how sponsorship is really important also to women in those roles.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting when I've been doing, in order to, not just to promote the book, but to promote the process of sponsorship of women, I've been running what we call Breakfasts for Champions. Uh-huh. It's an opportunity for women to come in and honor the men and sometimes the women who have been champions for them, who have sponsored them. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, this is within a larger organization. But one of these breakfasts we did in Santa Cruz, California, for the Santa Cruz County Bar. There are fewer lawyers in the entire county than there are in probably some law firms, that are around today. Mm-hmm. There are no large law firms. The largest firm is probably about 25 lawyers. Okay. So, and so when the women came in to talk about their sponsors, most of these women were either solo practitioners or they had just a few partners or a few lawyers in their firms. Mm. And what, in a way, one of the things that became clear was that when you go out on your own, in a way, you've got an advantage because you've already demonstrated your drive. Hmm. When you're on your own, you are committed to your own success, right. And you have to have a good idea of where you're headed. Mm-hmm. So at that point, it becomes a process of identifying the kind of help you need to get the clients you want, to get the kind of appointments you want on committees, or how do you get on panels, how do you get known, how do you build a reputation. Mm-hmm. And so instead of looking inside an organization, although in a small firm, even if there are just a few of you, you champion each other, you help each other. Mm-hmm. But in either case, small firm or solo, you look for sponsors in organizations, for example, It might be in a state bar. It might be in a specialty bar. It might be in a community organization, a nonprofit, a public interest group. It could be almost anywhere. You can form your own panel. You know, in mentoring today, one of the things we've learned is the importance of having more than one mentor, not relying on any single mentor. And when you think about it, there are a lot of good reasons. You know, the fact that one person can't address all of your needs, you need different perspectives based on at different points in your career and different needs that you have. So you want to have a panel. Some people call it a personal board of advisors or a personal board of directors. And what you do is you reach out to people and you say, I would like a little help with X, you know, with business development, with how to close a deal. And you are so great at that. Would it be all right if I call you from time to time? Not will you be my sponsor? Will you be, you know, make a lifetime commitment to my success? But, you know, being very targeted. This is the kind of help I need. You're an expert. Could I call you? And the people who do this really well also do things for the people who help them. So one of the great examples is a woman I know who went out on her own and would have her board come together. She invited them to breakfast a couple of times a year so that they would get to know each other and expand their networks. And because some of them were in different fields, it enriched them in ways, you know, that were to their benefit. So, you know, showing some gratitude, giving some thanks.
Right. You have to give to get. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all excellent advice, and I would encourage folks to take a look at your other books as well, especially the women out there. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Just to emphasize this point about being as focused as you can be, and when you're junior, you know, you're fairly new. That's hard. And so one of the best things you can do is to reach out to other organizations, whether it's a women's bar organization, a women's bar association, or another bar association, you know, some group, so that you have connections in the community. I think you don't want to feel so isolated that you then become reluctant to reach out to an individual. If you get involved in some aspect of the community, whether it's legal or not, at least there are people there, you know, that you can go to. And the other thing I would ask women to keep in mind has to do with a mistake that many women make. Years ago, I did some research on cross-race and cross-gender mentoring. What makes those relationships work when they do work? And one of the things we discovered among young men and women was a bias in favor of female mentors when the issue that they wanted to discuss had to do with work life, you know, juggling work and life.
Okay.
And it made me realize how comfortable we all are with people like us, or people we assume support what we are looking for. And of course, in that particular case, I know a lot of women who would be terrible mentors if that's the issue they aren't supportive at all of women, you know, these issues. And I know men who would be wonderful mentors and wonderful advisors in that area. So it's a bias we all have to watch out for, is looking for someone who makes us feel comfortable and who we think is going to kind of reinforce what we already want. And instead, you want somebody like that, you know, around. I'm not saying don't have that, that's important. But you also want to reach out to somebody who's different, who's going to give you maybe a message you're not comfortable hearing, but is really valuable and important for you to know. And if all the people around you, all of your advisors kind of think like you do, you're not really learning much.
Hmm.
You're getting comforted, you're getting your biases reinforced, you're
Right.
getting certain, things that may be very positive reinforced,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not really growing. You're not really
Hmm.
getting out there to getting the benefit that you need from mentors who have different perspectives.
Mm. Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. We talk a lot about biases, but that was one that I hadn't thought about. Oh. Well, thank you very much, Ida. Very much appreciate it. If our listeners would like to find out more about you, can you tell us where they find you?
Sure, my best place is my website,
Mm-hmm.
and that's Ida Abbott, IDAABBOTT.com.
Great, wonderful. Well, we'll put a link to your book and to the website. But again, it's really an excellent read. For anyone out there who cares about advancing women in the law and in their careers. And thank you very much, Ida, for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure.